Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Let's start with a story that perfectly captures the playful and sometimes mischievous dynamics of a family. Imagine it's 1985, and the family just got a shiny new 1985 Caprice Classic. The excitement was palpable as the car represented more than just a vehicle. However, there was a slight practical challenge that turned into an amusing family anecdote involving my mom, dad, and Uncle Ernie. Thanks to a little height difference between OP's parents. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Just a little height difference. The characters: Mom, Dad, Uncle Ernie. The story: I can remember this event clearly. The family laughed about this for years. The year was 1985. Dad just brought home a brand new car, a 1985 Caprice Classic. Mom and Dad picked it out together weeks ago, and he just picked it up from the dealership. We went for a drive so they could show off the new car to us kids and some close friends who were excited for my parents. Dad had an old half-ton he drove to work and back, so the car was left with Mom most days. Some days she drove it, but others she didn't need to go anywhere, so it sat in the driveway. Now, here I'll mention that there is a huge height difference between Mom and Dad. Dad was roughly 198.12 centimeters, 6'5", and Mom was roughly 157.48 centimeters, 5'2". Needless to say, the driver's seat needed to be moved for each of them. Dad got petty one day and pulled one of his little pranks on Mom. He took the car to work one day, which was not unusual if he didn't feel like driving his truck. While he had it at work, he welded the driver's seat where he feels comfortable and never said a thing to Mom. Probably 2 or 3 days later, Mom had to go to a doctor appointment or something like it. When she got in the car, she tried adjusting the seat, but it never budged. She came in the house and asked me to go look to see if I can figure out what was wrong. As soon as I looked at the track where the seat should slide, I see the weld. I pointed it out to Mom. When Mom got mad, she always looked like she just ate 30 lemons, and she gets quiet. When she went quiet when I was a kid, I knew it was about to go down. She went into her bedroom and grabbed pillows to put behind her so she could reach the pedals. By the time she got to the appointment, she had the most sour look on her face. We left the appointment, and I thought we'd be heading home, but we started in a different direction. I didn't dare ask where. I just sat back for the ride and shut my mouth. After a few kilometers, I realized we were heading to Uncle Ernie's place. This is where we brought Dad's work truck to get fixed and Mom's uncle. Mom got out of the car and showed Uncle Ernie where Dad welded the seat all the way back. He kinda giggled and asked what she wanted him to do about it. Mom told him to cut off the gas and brake pedals and weld something on them so her feet can reach the pedals with the seat all the way back. After some time, measurements, and welding, it was done, and we went home. It wasn't until the next night, when Dad was heading to the Legion like he did most nights. Within a minute, he came bursting through the door, ripping about the pedals. Mom just looked at him with a look of amusement, which made him angrier. He asked her where she got the idea to mess around with the brand new car. Again, with the same look as before, she answered, "If you didn't weld the seat to your position, but I drive the car more and can't reach the pedals, what am I supposed to do? Now, if you want to take your truck tonight, you can take the car tomorrow and remove the welding from the seat first so it moves right, then you can take the extensions off the pedals." That's exactly what he did, too. Do you think he would learn his lesson? Not my dad. He always said, "I'm not stubborn and I'll fight to the death to prove it." That's amazing. Seems like they were made for each other, with the way your mom just serves it right back to him. And our second story. A manager yells at me, mistaking me for a vendor. Around 8 years ago, my wife and I were at a big box store buying the stuff to make a pizza. When I have time, I prefer to make the crust from scratch, but I buy pre-made when I'm in a hurry. We were hungry now, so we were looking at said pre-mades. I went to grab our favorite type, but noticed that they were all expired. I knew from having previously worked at a different Walmart that they would not be noticed by staff anytime soon, so they wouldn't be reordered. So I took the entire selection and sought out an employee. Luckily, just as I left the aisle, I saw a manager speaking with someone. I stood nearby, waiting to speak with him. He saw me with my arm full of crusts and said, "Yes, what?" I told him these crusts are all expired. He told me, with a voice that had anger in it, then take them to claims. I looked at him for a second before asking, are you sure? He told me even louder, take them to the damn claims area and pick up your effing vendor badge while you're back there. Also, I don't think that a band t-shirt's part of your company's dress code. I was wearing my favorite Dead Kennedy shirt that day. I stared at him, just waiting to see how this plays out. He stared back for a moment, then realization slowly dawned and he asked, You do work for the crust company, right? I said, no, I just thought you'd like to know you have expired product on the shelf so you can get it replaced. He apologized repeatedly and offered to comp a different crust option for me. I took it, but from then on, my wife and I shopped at Target. And our next story. My house, my rules, okay? So a few years ago, my dad was moving out of his house and in with his parents due to some health problems with my grandma. This was over summer break, and I was just out of high school at the time, about to go into college, so I had absolutely nothing to do all summer as I waited to move out of state. My dad never was and still isn't super organized, whereas I alphabetize my own bookshelf with a full system type A about keeping things in order. Call me weird, but I really enjoy reorganizing things and cleaning. It just hits that button for me. So being that he had about 2 months until he closed on the house, I just start to pack up some of the house for him. Basement was a disaster, and I had wanted to tear it up for years, so within the first day I'd made a significant dent in the basement, which ended up being a very involved process. I didn't realize when we'd moved in that a lot of the stuff from our old house was still packed haphazardly because my brother and I were too young to really help. So I went through the process of unpacking these still packed boxes from house one, labeling the boxes the way I wanted to, and then repacking those boxes appropriately. After about 3 days of this, I get about 50% done, including cleaning and packing my room and some of the garage. Here's the build-up to the malicious compliance. My dad comes down to help me, all good with me. I start explaining where things go, and my dad wants to change it. I resist, explaining that I already have the system, and I have been doing the bulk of the packing, so he should probably just go with me on this one, which is when he hits me with the namesake of this post. So I relent, because I know what'll happen. Anyone that's really type A will agree with me that the only thing more frustrating than things being chaotic and out of order is things that are slightly out of order, which is what I knew would happen. Regardless of the fight Dad and I had, he ended up almost following the system. Mostly things that belong in the labeled boxes went where they were supposed to, except for a few very important odds and ends that got put, well, not where they were supposed to. I noticed this, but because of my house, my rules, clearly he has a plan, so I don't say anything. I knew the payoff was going to be a slow burn, and it came several months later when I was in school across the country and unable to help. Dad calls me one day very flustered because he can't find something he needed. He'd been in the storage unit he rented in my hometown for the better part of 3 hours looking. Now, the storage unit got packed horribly by the moving crew. I've been in there a few times after the story, and I feared for my safety. It's a legitimate labyrinth/jungle gym and a nightmare to get through, not to mention this was midsummer and there was no AC. So Dad is mad on the phone asking me where it is, and I ask him if it's in the box I labeled in big red Sharpie, important crap. He says no, and I smile a bit. Then he says, well, you were in charge of packing all this stuff, and now I can't find it. That's when I calmly reminded him of the blowout fight we had over this exact issue and how he commandeered my operation afterwards. I told them that if I was actually in charge, it'd be in the box labeled important crap. He hung up on me after that. I love my dad, and I had no problem helping him out. We laugh about it today, but I can't say I didn't get a good chuckle at the thought of him sweating and cursing, climbing around in that effing storage unit death trap. He recently found another place to live now that my grandparents have more in-home assistance, and I've already worked out that I'm going to come help him move. We already agreed I'm in charge this time. Good luck for the next move. I'm glad you guys can laugh about it today. Thanks for sharing your compliance with us. And our next story. HOA president is a parking tyrant. The Homeowners Association president was an old man, would leave nasty messages on people's cars that parked outside his window. These notes would complain that the parked car spoiled his view, of which the view was the house across the street. Several of my friends and family had these messages put on their car, and it was getting ridiculous, but I bit my tongue. Then one day I woke up and noticed the old man had painted the entire curb along his home bright red. This pissed me off. I went to the Homeowners Association meeting and complained that this behavior was setting a precedent where anyone can paint their curb red. If everyone did, there would be no parking in the entire community. People listened, but nothing was done, and I was later approached by a member of the board who said everyone was scared of the president, and although my argument was valid, nothing would be done. I was going to test the HOA president by parking there and seeing if anything happened, but decided for something better. My best friend and I bought some concrete-colored paint and at 2 a.m. in the morning completely repainted the entire curb. 3 days later, he painted it back to red. We repainted it gray again. He painted it back to red. Then a few days later, I got another job, realized I was moving away, and said to hell with it. I had my last laugh. And our last story. Dad and his decorated windmill stand tall against HOA lawsuit. When I was about 10, a new neighborhood went up across the street from us that had an HOA. The houses were very nice and were probably worth $200K more than the average house in my town. My parents had owned our house for about 15 years at that point, and man, did my dad like to piss them off. One story that sticks out is when I was a freshman in high school, my dad bought a large windmill meant for power. It wasn't one of the big ones you see, but smaller in size, probably a good 20 or so feet tall. The HOA in the neighborhood tried to get him to take it down since they deemed it an eyesore. My dad pretty much told them to get lost since they couldn't do anything. They ended up trying to sue us, and the judge dismissed the case after my dad explained that the windmill was approved by the city planning committee and he had permits and that we weren't a part of the HOA. He still has it up and decorates it with lights for Christmas. Edit. So I talked to Mom this morning since this got big. Apparently he put the windmill up to help reduce our electricity costs since this area is pretty spendy. They didn't raise a fuss until after it was up. And there were things in the past they did to alienate us. We had about 3 or 4 acres of property and would ride motorcycles, and anytime we did, people from the neighborhood would come over and ask us to stop riding them. When it was being built, the neighborhood tried to buy our property for pennies, but my parents said no, which caused a sore spot. Fun fact, a lot of my friends growing up live in that neighborhood. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.